Welcome, everybody, to twitch.tv/ESPN Esports. Every single Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we present to you Coach's Corner, our ESPN Esports Call of Duty League program, where we dive into the coaches of the Call of Duty League, how they approach coaching their teams, and all the news and notes surrounding the Call of Duty League and their teams. We are diving into the Seattle Surge today. Very happy to be joined by Nubzy, who is the head coach of the Seattle Surge. Joey, appreciate your time. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while now. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great today. Getting ready. Woke up nice and early, ready for this interview, and then we'll get some practice going later today. So I'm feeling good.
What's practice going to look like leading up to the home series this weekend?
It's going to look like a lot of scrimmages. We have about 3 time slots a day booked for scrims this week, just trying to get as many reps in as possible, especially with the recent change. So we're getting a lot of reps in going into it.
Revan already in the chat, glad to see Joey could make his bed for this. We were just joking off the air, actually, that how many gamers don't make their beds when it's visible in their backgrounds. So thank you. You threw a comforter. It's perfect.
Had to.
Let's start with this. I want to dive into all things Seattle Surge, but there was big news that was broken around the league. Prestinni has joined the Chicago Huntsmen. This is something that was rumored for a very long time, whether Prestinni would even stay with the Florida Mutineers after being benched. Of course, he went through what he went through following the Atlanta series, and Florida did get a tournament win after the fact, bringing in Faro, etc. But what was your first reaction, Joey, as a coach of another team in the league when you saw this move?
Yeah, I think it's a really strong move for Chicago. Obviously, as people know, I've known Prestinni and Arcides for a really long time. Those guys are my best friends, so seeing them back together is incredible. I'm really happy for them. From a competitive standpoint in that atmosphere, I do think it's a really good move for Chicago. I think they gained an asset that a lot of people have considered probably underrated for a long time. So I do genuinely think they're going to get a lot better, and it makes the competition even that much better.
You know, even with maybe not too much this season with Seattle facing Florida, but you have had a lot of battles with the brothers in the past, right? With Gen G and E United, your history and lineage, and you're very close to them as well. What can you say about Prestinni and Arcides reuniting and seeing them as competitors?
It's scary. Preston and Alec bring so much balance to each other, and they level each other out so much to where they honestly put them in each other's best forms. Preston brings so much like drive and determination and passion, while Alec brings just so much mental capability to the table. And he just, if they are working well together and they are perfectly cemented with their team, they make any team they're on together immediately better. So it's going to be scary to see them back together, I'll be honest.
In and around the time that Prestinni was sort of rumored to be available, or even there was some speculation happening, Seattle was going through some roster changes as well. Enable was benched, Pander came in, then Enable came back. Was there ever any conversation, or did you bring it up at all, that maybe Seattle should take a look at Prestinni? Was there ever any conversations? Anything you can tell us?
Yeah, I mean, the moment Preston was available, there was a lot of talks of, who's going to be the team that's honestly lucky to get him. And there were a lot of things that went down. There were a lot of, internal team discussions, things that were wavered back and forth on. And what it really came down to is, things within our team, internal. We just realized that it wasn't really the right move to work towards a player like Prestinni if it was even, an available option at the time, because no one really had that information. So, ended up not pursuing that route. And he's on Chicago now, and he's going to be happy there. But yeah, it was definitely something that I think every team honestly considered.
Let's talk about Seattle now, moving gears here. It's interesting to be going into a home series that technically you're hosting, but it doesn't feel like you have any sort of advantage. And what I mean is there's no home crowd. I don't know if there's any sort of rules that give you any sort of advantage. Like, what is it like preparing your team for a home series weekend that may not necessarily even feel like a home series weekend?
As much as we've been limited to traveling and, not putting on a home series that really feels like it's, a home, the thing is, this is still Seattle's home series, and it's still really important to keep in mind that this is what this franchise, the ownership, everything has put, their time and effort into. Like, this is their event. it's time to showcase what our team can do in the spotlight. So as for preparation, it's, we'll take preparation about the same, but there is something in the back of our head that's saying, this is important to more than just us. This is important to our franchise, to our fans. Like, this is our home series. So there's definitely a level of taking it just all the more serious and putting all the more effort into it, because it does matter, even though we're, all in our bedrooms.
So take me into that. Like, how prestigious is this, or how important is it for you and the team simply because your name is attached to the weekend? Like, does that add any pressure?
I don't know if it adds pressure necessarily, just because of the other teams that have been performing so well. What I think it does do is it adds more excitement and prestige, like you said, if we do end up winning the whole thing. Atlanta won their home series, and the headline was immediately Atlanta wins, their home series, and it feels more important, and it feels like they, sort of did right by their franchise, if that makes sense. And they took it extremely serious. They won it for their franchise. They got to keep that trophy at home. Like, it's a big deal, and for us to be able to come out and have the same opportunity, it's just as important.
What about the weekend itself? Right now, Seattle is in 10th, but there has been a lot of movement. Last tournament, it really felt like a lot of teams leveled up, or at least announced their presence in the Call of Duty League, right? There were a lot of emerging teams. What do you make of Seattle and what they can do going into this weekend?
Yeah, I think Octane said this before, and I think he put it in a really great way. I'll try to rephrase it to the best of my ability. I think, as poor as we have been doing, and our performance has not been great, I genuinely do think people look at us a lot worse than we are. I'll try to be as unbiased on that as possible. We've had 4 game 5s we've lost. It's we've had some close hard points to bring it to another game 5 that we haven't really closed out on. And while that is a bad trait in the team, and it's not something you want, it does show a level of constant improvement and ability to learn. And I think we do get downplayed a bit in that sense. And these guys are champions, and eventually we're gonna pick it up. I genuinely believe that we're going to get on the same page, the same click, and we'll be a great team. But as for other teams leveling up, I do think we saw a lot of teams become much better. New York, saw glimpses of Optic, Toronto. But in the same sense, I think we're starting to see the reality of a few other teams that maybe were overhyped a little bit. Not overhyped in the sense that they're bad, but just we didn't get to see them for so long. So your teams like London, Paris, we didn't get to see them for since they were doing decent. So we kind of had this idea in the back of our heads, like, okay, they're probably still pretty good, and they didn't have great showings. So as much as I do think teams are getting better and leveling up, I think some other teams are starting to level out a little bit. And I just hope that we're not a team that's going to plateau early. I think we're going to come out strong, and we're going to keep improving leading into the rest of the season.
So in your group, you're facing the Subliners first this weekend. You also have the Royal Ravens and Gorillas. From my point of view, this looks like a very winnable group, and also a group that certainly Seattle can get out of, right? The other side looks very much like a group of death in terms of where the teams are. Minnesota is always a team that people point to and say they're due for a tournament win. Optic Gaming just made a final. Chicago just leveled up by getting Prestinni, and they have championship wins, and they're always in that top 3 conversation. So what do you make of your group, and in particular, how the Subliners have been performing recently with the addition of Mac?
Yeah, I do completely agree. Our group should be very winnable for us, and we should be able to make it out. In the same regard, I think New York probably feels the same way, as do, I assume, the other teams. But from a logistics standpoint, I assume New York believes that probably the most. I do think New York has improved a lot. Mac is a player that I had my eye on really early in the season. I follow the amateur scene a lot. I'm always a big proponent for those guys. And he's someone that I'm friends with too, so I get to talk to him pretty often. And he is a really talented player, and what he brings to a team is a lot of just aggression, and he speeds the pacing up a little bit, takes routes that are very similar, I think, to Zuma. So when they're both clicking on the same page, it's near impossible to ever hold a pinch or not get broken on a hill. So I do think he is really talented, and I think he brings a lot to that team, which makes them what I considered probably one of the worst teams, down there with us when we were all the bottom 4. And I do think they're a lot better now, and they're going to constantly keep improving too. And their S&D looks strong. So if they can improve it, if they can improve their S&D a lot, they're going to be a really good team.
I remember when I was talking with Clayster, he said that the subliners make him want to pull his hair out during scrims. Have you guys experienced the same thing?
Yeah, they are definitely an annoying team to scrim against. From at least what I can hear my players saying. They definitely seem like they're an annoying team. They're fast. It feels like they have one of the better, if not like the best, genuine understandings of the game too. And it really comes down to executing for them. Like when you just watch their arrows on the map, they all seem to be just relatively on the same page. Like they understand how the game is supposed to be played. It's all about execution for those guys.
What did you make of? I know I'm asking a lot of non-team questions, but your opinion is very respected around the league, so I'd love to get your thoughts. What did you make of Censor's video? I know that he's been grinding, trying to make it to a main roster, whether NYSL or otherwise. He posted a video yesterday, basically saying he quits. He's had enough. Well, what do you make of that? What do you make of his journey and his attempts to make a main roster this year?
You know, I respect Censor a lot, and I understand it from both sides, right? I understand the flack that he gets because he hasn't proven himself over the past couple of years, and I also agree with him that he hasn't really been given a chance to prove himself. What I will say though is substitutes are very important. If that hasn't been shown and seen by now, then I don't know what to tell you. Like substitutes are very important. I said this last year going into this season that substitutes were going to be extremely important. I know there was a clip floating around of that last year. Because I just had a feeling that the subsystem was going to work like this, and I know how important the subsystem is, and as a person who takes advantage of substitutes, I'm doing it for quite a while now. I will say that him just keeping up that grind and showing that he wants to be there, he wants to be in the mix, is really important, and I do think it'll get noticed. I really do, because he's not like. As much flack as Doug may get, he is not a bad player. That's like pretty much undisputed. He's not just terrible. Like that's not a thing. He just needs people around him, and you honestly won't find a work ethic that's too much better than his. So I respect that a lot. But as far as him, like not wanting to play as much, I know that he wants to form a challengers team. So if that's possible, I do think that's a really good step for him to kind of showcase his talent and his ability to take a team to championships. Yeah, I think if he keeps on the grind and doesn't just give up on himself, which I know he's not going to do, he'll be in an okay position, and he'll be just like all the other substitutes, because I think he's really important for the league too. His brand, his attitude, I think it's really, really important for the league. So we instead of battering him and taking him down a peg every time he gets roasted for not having the highest kill game in tens or whatever, instead we should just like any other player, try to build him up and help him improve. It's competition, but at the same time, it's longevity of the league. So
it's impressive that he wants to make the league. He doesn't have to, right? Like he can make a living as a streamer. He's got a following. He can make content and be perfectly fine, but this is his desire. He wants to compete. I find that pretty admirable.
Yes, 100%. His dedication, his work ethic is really strong. It's someone that I would compare to Apathy. They're very similar people. I've been working with App now for the whole season. He has so much passion and dedication. He had a child, and he's still just putting in so much effort and wants it just so bad. And they remind me of each other a lot, and I really do respect it. And I think it will pay off, because I think Call of Duty's like that.
Yeah. Listen, as someone who has a newborn myself, I'm just going to go ahead and say that Apathy is the hardest working person in Call of Duty League, just because I know what he goes through as a dad. That's all I'm going to say. You can disagree if you want, but
I would agree with you. App is very hardworking.
Believe me, it's very difficult to raise a small child and do what you do, let alone being a professional in esports. So good on Apathy. If you're just joining us here, we are talking with Joey Nubzy, who is the head coach of the Seattle Surge. I am seeing in the chat that a lot of people are here for the NHLPA Fortnite tournament. Don't worry, that is happening later. It's going to start, I believe, at 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you're looking to see Mitch Marner and Alex Tuck playing some Fortnite, don't worry, it's coming. Back to this conversation, though. Joey, I want to go through the entire substitutions and everything that's happened with the Seattle Surge. Enable getting benched, Enable coming back, Pander being the decision to come in. Can you just take, as much as we can peek behind the curtain here, just take me through that timeline and some of the conversations that were made and what led to Enable being benched and then coming back?
Sure. I think most of this has been publicized before, so I can talk a decent amount about it. Originally, after London, we realized as a team, actually backtracking to the beginning of the season, to be honest, when this team was originally formed, we thought, okay, this is a team of champions. We should be able to, win at any given time. Something we knew we didn't necessarily have, though, was, a submachine gun superstar. We have players that are very intelligent and take incredible routes and know how to play the game the best way. But we don't have exactly, this 18-year-old simp, just player that's going to get in your face, super aggressive. Apathy is like that, but he's also someone who takes good routes. So it kind of takes away from that aggression sometimes. So going into it, we knew, like, okay, we have the tools to be really good from a methodical standpoint. We need we need the passion to come in to become, like, get our gun skill up a little bit, make sure we can keep up with the teams that are relying mostly on their ability to move around the map and kill people. So after London, we did have a bit of a work ethic problem. It was not just Enable, to be fair. It's on everyone. It's on me. It's everything. We weren't putting in as much effort as a team we should have been, because from the beginning of the season, we should have been putting in more effort than almost anyone. So maybe we had a little bit of early complacency just based off of, the past year and everyone's success then. But we needed some kind of change and some kind of refresher going into the next few tournaments. And I think Enable was someone who, at the time, wasn't putting up, the greatest stats ever, which no one on the team was, to be fair, except for Octane and Apathy at a couple times. So it really didn't come down to a statistic thing. It was more of a dedication, work ethic thing. And Enable even said it before. He knows he wasn't putting in the most effort that he can, which, when he is putting in a lot of effort, it's big for him. He gets significantly better really fast. So we decided, we built our bench was well built. I'm not saying that just because I built it, but I genuinely believe our bench was probably honestly, I think the best one in the league. We have Proto and Pander, who we first picked up.
How did you go about forming the bench?
I looked at amateur players because I knew that they probably weren't going to get into the league, and I know those guys really well. A lot of people say that it's like a friendship thing, which, to be completely fair, it's a friendship thing in the sense that I know how they are as people and as players, right? So, like, it's sure friendship thing. I didn't just get them, on the bench so they could make money and just sit there. That's not it at all. I know they're good players. I know they're good people. They're hardworking. So Proto and Pander was kind of like a no-brainer for me. So yeah, that's how it was, like, kind of formed. And then going into wanting to bring someone in, we immediately wanted to not work towards a trade, because we did genuinely believe that Enable was going to be someone that was going to get better. Like, we knew that his work ethic was going to improve. I at least had a feeling of that. Not going to say 100% that I knew it, because that would be ignorant and that would make it seem like I just brought Pander in just to know that I was going to sub him out. Like, that's not the case at all. But I did think that it would definitely spark something with Ian. So when we brought Pander in, we thought, okay, Pander understands the game really well. We saw that. We scrimmed his team a few times, his amateur team, and they had a very clear-cut understanding of the game, like, far and away better than ours. So we thought bringing Pander in, he would kind of be able to teach us the game, take the right routes, and hopefully bring a little bit of slang. And at first, that definitely was the case. We were getting a lot better in scrimmages. We were playing a lot better. We went to the LA home series. We ended up beating Gorillas, but those were some decently close series we had there. Not in the map count realm, but just from in game, they were relatively close. And after that, we just kept noticing that we were improving and improving. And then after this, past home series, we kind of realized, even going into this past event, Florida's home series, or not Florida, sorry, the one before that, Chicago. Going into the Chicago home series, we definitely felt like we were kind of plateaued a bit as a team. We weren't really improving all that much. We were losing a lot of maps and scrimmages. So we went into that one thinking, okay, let's just give it our all this time. I genuinely think we can do, like, really well here. We play it out. It looks okay. We do look a lot better. We take an S&D off Atlanta. It looks really good. But even during and afterwards, we're still like, okay, we are showing improvement from an outside perspective, but internally, I think we've plateaued. I think we have just kind of reached our limit as a team here. And then the immediate conversation was like, okay, Enable has been sitting there. He's been grinding. His work ethic has definitely improved. I mean, Enable wants to win. Like, that's a big thing. It's the same with most of the guys in the league, and especially on this team. Enable wants to win. And so it was pretty easy to say, okay, Ian, look, we want you back in here. Come show us how much, like, your work ethic has improved. We'll show you how much ours has improved, because, again, it was an all team thing. It was not just him by any means. So we bring him back in for scrimmages last week. We tell Casey Pander to be on sort of standby as a substitute. He understood it completely. He took it so well, and I thanked him too. He's a great friend of me and Octane, and I think he became great friends with everyone else on the team. He is someone who understands his role 100%. He is a substitute, and this is what his job is essentially. And he understood it. He took it perfectly well, which was amazing to see, and I respect a lot. And he played great. As much as that series against Atlanta that everyone likes to bring up was bad, he did play really great, and he taught our team a lot. If we end this season and we are champions, just know Pander didn't have nothing to do with it. Like, he taught us a lot of things. So I'm really happy with that. But I'm also excited to see what our future holds with Enable.
When the switch initially happened, when Pander was first brought in and Enable was benched, did you know at the time that this would be a temporary thing, or were you thinking that Pander might be a full-time solution?
I never thought Pander would be a full solution, and I definitely didn't think it was like 100% a temporary thing either. It was a weird mix. I thought that if Pander could come in, teach us the game, which he did, and then also make our S&D significantly better, which isn't really a one-person thing. You're not usually going to bring in one person to make your S&D just instantly better. But if he could like keep up in the slaying department, yeah, I did think it could easily be permanent, and it could lead to a lot of wins and a lot of championships like with this team. But when it didn't occur and it fell off a little bit, I wasn't devastated. I was more just ready to bring Enable back in and see what we could do. So it wasn't temporary, or it wasn't this temporary idea or this permanent idea. It was more just in the moment, what can make us better and how can we improve as a team. And I think we did improve a lot. So I'm excited to bring Enable into the mix.
Did, as a result of all of this, and especially how he handled going back to the bench, how much does Pander's stock improve with the team and the league, in your opinion?
I think it's really weird. I'll talk sort of I'll try not to act as Pander's friend in this, and more as a person who's been watching Call of Duty for a long time. And again, I focus on the amateur scene a lot. Pander's been someone that has been underrated in the AM scene for a really long time. He brings a lot to a team. I do think he has his problems as a player, 100%. That's not even a question. I do think on certain teams in the league right now, he would make them significantly better. He would be able to shine as an all-star, really. Just wasn't this team. As a player, as far as his stock goes, though, Call of Duty is really day-to-day, and I think people hold on to things for a really long time. I personally, and I know a lot of players on this team and on other teams that I talk to, think Casey is an amazing player, and he has so much potential. As for his stock, I'm really not sure. I hope it rises from this, honestly, and I hope that we can win, and I can look back and say, maybe other franchises, or if he wants to, however this works, if Seattle wants to, hold on to him, I want to say, look, he helped us in this. He is part of the reason that we are here. And yeah, I think his stock should immediately go up because he's a great player, and he's probably one of the best teammates.
Back to Enable for a second. Did you anticipate how much did you anticipate the reaction from the CDL community of his benching? I mean, we saw copy pasta on social media, people commenting left and right about this, and eventually he returns to the team. How much of that did you anticipate, and did you game plan for that, or did you just let it happen as it may?
I think a lot of people in my position would have shut down, to be honest, kind of emotionally and off social media. But this is something that I'm used to at this point. I did this last year with Spacely being benched, and he has a huge following, and he's been around forever, so people were really upset and really outspoken about that. So I was kind of used to it going into this. I knew this whole situation. I feel like I relived it. Like, this is actually the exact situation that occurred last year, so I've been through this. I did anticipate the community to be pretty upset about his benching, which was completely fair. I mean, what I've always said about the Call of Duty community too, and especially going to a league like this, is there's so much information that is not shown, and there's so much internal things with teams and the league that people, all they can do is speculate. And I'm always willing to take criticism from people that are just speculating. I think people speak a lot about things that they really don't know about, and that's just kind of what you have to ignore on social media. But at the same time, I understood why people were upset. Fair enough. But I was also really happy when we brought him back last week to see all the people so happy that we were bringing him back. And in the same sense, it was also really nice. It was like a win-win. I was really happy to see all these people excited about us bringing Enable back, but I was also genuinely happy to see the people that were mad. and we're like, oh no, Panda was actually improving the team. You guys are looking so much better, because that shows me like Panda did have an impact, and he did make this team better. And if we can carry that over with Enable and show him all of that, then I think everyone's going to be happy.
Having a great conversation. This is just the tip of the iceberg, Joey. We're going to have you back on Coach's Corner a second time just to dive into so many more things, your career, etc. The one last question I would like to ask you is about the proposed playoff format in CDL that has certainly changed since the league went online, with all teams making the playoffs and certain teams getting buys for multiple rounds in the winner's bracket. When you heard about this, what was your reaction, and are you in favor of this format?
I think it's hard for me to really give a reaction or like dive too much into it, just because being one of those teams that are sort of at the bottom of the totem pole right now, it definitely looks kind of worrisome, right? Like this whole idea of starting and being at, I guess, a disadvantage it's a little scary, but it's also motivating and something to work for. I think the format that's been shown is good. I think it's going to cause for potentially some upsets once like bracket play comes out. Maybe people not playing, not being as warmed up is in the groove, because it assuming that hoping that things can return back to a LAN environment. I think that'll cause a lot of shifts in teams, and I think it's going to make for something really cool. And the format that's been shown is going to be really exciting. I think it's going to be shown for like one of the best playoff / champ atmospheres that you can have.
Joey, really appreciate your time. Please come back here on Coach's Corner. Success to the Seattle Surge this weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of Coach's Corner, our ESPN Esports Call of Duty League program every single Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, where we talk to a different coach around the league and talk about the stories surrounding their teams and their philosophies. We didn't even get into that part, but we will have Nubzy back to talk about coaching philosophies. There's so much to dive into there. Programming note, if you are here for the NHLPA Fortnite event, that's going to be starting very soon, I believe at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So stick around. That will be starting very soon. And also, if you are a fan of Call of Duty League, we have a program called Search and Destroy every single Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Myself, Katie Bedford, and Emily Rand break down all things Call of Duty League. You'll definitely want to check that out as well. Thank you to Nubzy, and thank you to you for watching. We'll catch you next time.